If you clicked on this video to improve your horse riding position and you expected to see someone on a horse, but you don't, so now you're gonna click away, hold up. I'm Sukie Baxter, and I've been a posture and movement therapist for over 15 years, as well as an equine body worker. Besides being an equestrian myself, I've worked with tons of equestrians who want to improve their horse's comfort and performance, as well as their own riding, but they're making one big, huge, giant mistake that's hurting not only themselves, but also their horses. I'm gonna tell you what that is in just a second. Hey gorgeous equestrians, as I mentioned, I'm Sukie Baxter, founder of Whole Body Revolution, where I help you to rewire yourself for greater health, happiness, and success. If you're new here, make sure you click that subscribe button and hit the bell so you get notified every time I release a new video, and all of the links to everything that I mentioned in this video you can find linked in the description box below. Let's get into it. Just before we start, make sure you stay tuned until the end because I'm going to share how you can get a free guide to my top tips for equestrians to heal pain from accidents and injuries and improve your balance in the saddle so that you can ride pain-free and perform at your highest level. Okay, so usually when you click on a video about riding position, you see someone on a horse teaching you how to get a stable lower leg or how to stop rounding your shoulders while riding your dressage test. All good things, of course. But these equestrians are actually unwittingly making a big mistake. And that is that they're waiting until they get on the horse and to fix their riding position. Let me explain what I mean. People don't stand or move in perfect symmetry. Over the course of your life, you get knocked around a little bit. You have a few accidents and injuries that jolt your body out of balance, and you develop some bad habits. Maybe if you sit at a computer for work, you wind up with slumped, rounded shoulders and tight hips, for example. If you really start to look at the way people stand and walk, you'll see that these patterns follow us around everywhere, even onto our horses. So if you're dealing with rounded shoulders and a crooked pelvis on the horse, you're definitely dealing with them off the horse too. So that's where our horse riding position correction needs to start, before you're riding. You can think of this like cross-training. Every athlete in every sport does supportive exercises to help them perform better. Equestrian riding is no different. Make sense? Click the like button if you're with me. Okay, so now let's talk about specific exercises to improve your riding position and performance. Probably the biggest challenge and frustration for many horse riders is having a stable, balanced seat. This comes down to pelvic balance. When you're on the horse, your pelvis is your foundation and your connection to the horse. Unfortunately, I find that most people have one or both hips really locked up. Sometimes one hip sits higher than the other because the muscles along one side of your body are contracting to pull it up. So here are a couple of exercises to build mobility, strength, and balance in your pelvis for better connection and symmetry in the saddle. So we're going to start with a simple sitting practice to balance your pelvis. And let's just begin with a little bit of awareness. So one of the things you may have heard your riding instructor talk about is your pelvic bones or your sits bones, whatever they might call them, your butt bones. They're the bony little pointy bits at the bottom of your pelvis, and that's what you should be balanced on when you're in the saddle. Now, I've talked to a lot of equestrians and they actually don't know where these bones are. So let's find them. So sitting on the floor, you can sit cross-legged like this. If this position is really difficult for you, put something under your hips to elevate them. You can sit on some yoga blocks or a bolster. A pillow might be a bit too soft, but something that will raise you up so that your hips are higher than your knees. And that should help if you have any flexibility issues in your hips or pain in your knees. So what you're gonna do, whatever you're sitting on, is slide your hands under your pelvis and find the bony bits underneath there that stick out and connect to the floor. And those are your sits bones or your ischial tuberosities. So these are what we're connecting to our horse with in the saddle. So now all you can do is, well, you can do a lot of things, but what we're going to do here is just gently rock side to side and feel how your weight shifts side to side as you move. And I'm not too concerned with where this movement is coming from at this point. So when you're in the saddle, you're not going to want your shoulders to be swaying side to side so much, but I don't really care what's going on right now. So you can just kind of lean to one side and then lean to the other. This is just to get a sense of where your pelvis even connects to the floor or would connect to the saddle once you're on the horse. So you maybe have never explored your sits bones, so this is your opportunity. So what we're gonna do then is bring your hand out from under your hips. So now you've found your sits bones, you know where they are, and spend a moment noticing how they connect to the floor. Feel the pressure of your sitting bones on whatever you're seated on, and we're just going to explore movement in these. So I want you to gently rock your weight towards the back of your sitting bones and towards the front of your sitting bones, because they're not just one tiny pinpoint, they have dimension. So we're going to explore the back of the sit bone and the front of the sit bone, really finding how long are they front to back. And what does it feel like to shift your weight forward and backward? If you're having some trouble with this, you can come back to placing your hands under your sits bones and play with that a little bit and feel the pressure against your fingers. Sometimes that makes it a little bit easier. And now, let's go ahead and focus on one side of our pelvis. So settle into the right sit bone. Put your weight more on that sit bone, becoming aware of what that sensation feels like. So there's two elements to this practice. There's what we're doing, so we're leaning our weight towards the right a little bit, we're settling into the right side, and then there's the inquiry portion. So what does that feel like? That's the noticing, that's the perception, that's becoming aware that we actually have control over where our weight is connecting through our body onto the floor, and also when we're riding, how it's going to be connecting into the saddle. So if you don't have this awareness here, you're not going to have it while you're riding. Okay, and so then just spend a moment circling around your right sit bone. So you may take your torso and just make a little bit of a circle. And we're going to try the other way. Really feeling how you can, or maybe you can't, move around that sit bone so much, which is also good information. Shifting to the left side, we're going to settle into that sit bone. And you may notice immediately one side feels very different than the other. That's really great info because it probably feels that way to your horse too. And we're gonna do the same thing. Now again, if you're having trouble finding the connection, you can always come back to sliding your hand under your sit bone for a little more contact and a little bit more awareness. So we're gonna circle around this left sit bone. It doesn't really matter what direction you choose to go first. And then circle the other way. And notice, does one side feel easier to move than the other? For me, my right side has a lot more control. My left side is the side that feels like I have to really pay more attention. And interestingly, when I'm riding my horse, or historically, really when I've ridden any horse, my left leg is the one that my trainer will say, use your leg, and I say, I am, and they're like, it's not moving. So that's the leg that I work more to have more balance and more connection through that side of my body. We generally will have that. Most people are either right or left-handed. Very few people are ambidextrous. So we also will have a more strong connection to one leg, more dexterity in one leg. And often the other side is our supporting side, so it's often stronger, but doesn't have as much dexterity. Okay, so we've gone both directions on the left sit bone. Coming back to center, how is that? Do you have more awareness of your pelvis in contact with the floor already? That's pretty interesting, right? That just that little practice of becoming aware of the place where you connect can actually change how supported you feel. And you may even notice your hips are a little bit more relaxed, that it's a little bit easier to sit here on the floor. For our next practice, we're going to come onto our backs. You can do this lying on a yoga mat or whatever you have that's comfortable, but you do need something that has some support and some firmness. So generally a sofa is going to be fairly soft, so something that's very squishy won't help you here. So lying on your back, notice that the back of your pelvis is touching the floor, right? So if you slide your hands under just beneath your lower back, the base, kind of where your tailbone is, it's where your sacrum is. you can feel that this part of your back is contacting the floor. And above that, you should have a small hollow space where your lumbar, your lower back, is lifted a little bit off the floor. That's fairly normal, and that's a neutral spine. We're really going to be putting our focus on the part of your pelvis that's connecting with the floor. And we're going to do some small movements that are going to both build mobility and flexibility in your pelvis while also creating balance. And they're also going to start to develop strength in some of your deeper, more intrinsic muscles that are going to help you maintain your balance and support while riding without stiffness. So all you're going to do is explore a front to back movement. So you're going to tip your tailbone until you're on the very bottom of it. So you're going to kind of rock your tailbone up. You're going to get a little bit more curve in your back, and then you're going to go the other direction. Now, do not strain with this. Definitely use caution if you have any back injuries. You may want to run this one by your physical therapist or your doctor before you try it, just to make sure it's not going to aggravate any back injuries or back issues. But as long as you're relatively comfortable and this feels like a good stretch to you, then you're well within your comfort zone. You should be okay. All right, so we're just going to keep going back and forth and really feel every centimeter of your sacrum, your tailbone, contacting the floor. And really notice, are there spots that are easier to get on the floor or areas where you feel like you have to lift off? How is this movement? Have you ever done this movement before? Have you ever thought about this movement? It might feel like even just this is difficult to coordinate. And that's totally okay. It's really good information. So when you're riding, your pelvis has to make a lot of forward movement, forward scooping, a lot of lateral movements as well, kind of a figure eight. There's just a lot going on in this area in order to keep you centered over your horse and not interfere with your horse's movement. So by mobilizing your pelvis here and starting to activate some of these more intrinsic muscles, it's going to translate to a better ability to feel through your pelvis and feel your horse's movement and then move with your horse. Okay. So now we're going to go side to side. So tip a little bit more towards the right side of your sacrum, so more towards this hip, right? So this part of your pelvis is going to contact the floor just a little bit more. And again, if you need a little help feeling this, you can put your hands under here and get a little bit of contact that way, or you can just do it against the floor. Okay, and then we're going to go to the left. Again, one side easier than the other. Don't move into pain. It is absolutely not beneficial to move into pain. You want to keep this within your comfort zone. So if the movement is uncomfortable, try making it smaller. If it's really uncomfortable, don't do it. And if you find that you just can't move very much, that's fine. Just make the movement small. Almost even imagining that you're making the movement actually can start to light up the neural pathways that you will need in order to be able to do this. So if you're frustrated and you're like, I'm not getting it at all, it's okay. Let go of the need to achieve and just imagine that you can do it. Imagine that you're moving, even just a millimeter is enough. Okay. So we've gone left to right. Go ahead and just relax here and kind of notice just from that, how does your pelvis feel on the floor? You might notice, hey, I've got more even contact. Like maybe my left side was a little bit heavier on the floor before, and now I really feel more contact with my right side, or vice versa. Or maybe you feel just kind of more smooshed on the floor. That's generally what I feel, is I just have more surface area that's in contact with the floor. So now we're gonna make circles. So if you can imagine this almost like a pizza pie, right here, right, or like a clock, then your belly button would be like 12 on the clock, and then 6 o'clock would be straight down at the base of your tailbone, and then you're gonna go around. So let's go clockwise. So we're gonna go to the left, and then we're gonna scoop down around, touching the base of your tailbone, scooping around to the right, coming back up, and to the top, and your belly button's gonna come back just a little bit. And we're gonna make a few circles here. See if you can make this a very smooth circle. So you're gonna try to not skip any of the spots on your pizza. You wanna eat the whole pizza? Or you wanna hit every point along the clock, okay? So you wanna make a nice smooth circle without skipping any corners. And let's go the other way. So we're gonna go towards your right hip's gonna drop down, circling around towards your tailbone. Over to the left, back up. Scooping over to the right again. We're gonna do a couple more. And notice what's happening here. You know, are you feeling fatigued? Is it starting to smooth out a little bit? Feel a little bit easier? Just kind of paying attention. And it's really important. You'll notice I'm moving slowly. It's important not to whip your pelvis around. Like, this is partially the movement that we're doing. That's part of the exercise. The other part of it is the feeling. It's the paying attention to what you're noticing as you're doing the movement, because that's really informative to your brain. It sends new info so that your brain can build new neural pathways, so that then when you go get on your horse, you're actually getting more information from all of the little cells in your body that sense where you are in space, all the little cells that tell your body how to balance. It's getting like more info, and that helps you to be better at balancing without having to work so hard to control your balance. So it takes the tension aspect away. Okay, so let's just come into the center again and just relax. And how does that feel to you? I really noticed that I am much more balanced on the floor. I actually didn't feel all that unbalanced at the beginning, to be honest, but now that I did that exercise, I really feel a nice even pressure across the back of my pelvis, and I feel much more settled, and even my lower back feels a lot softer. So pay attention to what's there for you. You may notice that you can feel something you didn't feel before. You may notice that something that was bothering you, bugging you, may be gone, maybe some discomfort, something like that. This is an exercise that you can use regularly. You can do it as a warm-up before you go and ride. It's a really great thing to do before you get on the horse. So if you can't do it at your barn, which a lot of barns don't have a place where you can be warm and dry and clean, you can do it at home before you go to the barn. But it's a great thing to do before you get on the horse, and it's absolutely great to do in between rides as well, to develop that mobility and that strength and that control. All right, I hope you found those exercises helpful to balance your pelvis, improve flexibility, and increase strength for a better seat in the saddle. Now, just before you go, I've put together a downloadable guide with my top tips for equestrians to heal pain from old accidents and injuries and improve your balance in the saddle so that you can ride pain-free and perform at your highest level. These are the things I've learned over the past 15 years of riding myself and working with other horse riders. Click the link on your screen or in the description box below to head on over and download that completely free. If you found this video helpful, hit that like button and remember to subscribe and hit the bell to get notified every time I release a new video. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.